So here's a pretty wild thought. What if we could model and, actually optimize our own happiness with the same kind of precision we use to build a skyscraper or launch a rocket? What if there was a blueprint, maybe even an equation for it? Okay, let's really dive into this. This quote from the legendary physicist Lord Kelvin it hits the nail right on the head. See, for centuries, engineers have lived by this one simple truth. To really understand a complex system, to actually get a handle on it, you have to build a model of it first. So it makes you wonder, why aren't we applying that exact same thinking to the most complex system of all, us? Because if we're all being honest with ourselves, the way we usually go about finding happiness is a lot less like engineering and a lot more like, well, just pure guesswork. We're all trying to build this incredibly important structure, our life, but we're doing it without a real blueprint, just kind of hoping all the pieces fit together in the end. Think for a second about the difference between building an ancient cathedral and a modern skyscraper. The cathedral builders, they were brilliant, but they were relying on tradition, on intuition, and a whole lot of trial and error. But modern engineers? No way. They use these predictive mathematical models that test every possible stress before a single piece of steel is in place. One is guesswork, the other is a blueprint. So let me ask you, which method are you using to build your life? This is such a perfect metaphor, isn't it? The builders of the Beauvais Cathedral in France, they were the best in the world at the time. They were aiming higher than anyone before them. But their model, their understanding of the physics, it was incomplete. And the whole thing just came crashing down. And don't we do the same thing? We build our lives based on incomplete models from our parents or a self-help book, leading to our own personal collapses when that advice just doesn't fit our personal design. So what happens when an expert from a world that is all about precision and predictability turns their attention to this deeply, deeply human problem? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Meet Dr. Glenn Gebert. Now, as an aerospace engineer, his entire job was to create these incredibly complex mathematical models to predict the future. We're talking about things like modeling the unsteady airflow over an airplane wing. He literally built equations to understand and control these super complex systems. And then he turned that same powerful mindset to human emotion. And this led him to the absolute core idea of his entire model, and you're going to want to really hear this. He argues that happiness isn't a destination. It's not some static thing you finally get. No. He says happiness is the feeling that is generated only by the rate of change in your life. It's the feeling of forward momentum, of positive change itself. Think about it. A pay raise feels amazing, but once that new salary becomes your new normal, the feeling kind of levels off, right? It's the change that matters. Okay, so if happiness only comes from change, then the obvious next question is, change in what? This is where we get to the actual building blocks of the whole model. Dr. Gebert basically distilled all of human activity down into these 8 key factors. You've got money, appearance, knowledge, credit, which is really recognition from others, relationships, experiences, fitness, and your personal projects or hobbies. The model says that any positive or negative change in these 8 areas is what's actually driving how we feel. Now, this isn't some simple little formula like money plus friends equals happy. Life is way more messy and interconnected than that. Improving your fitness might give you the energy to learn more, which might lead to a better job and more money. The model has to account for all that interconnectedness. And that means we have to step into the world of calculus. Okay, hold on. Don't panic. You do not need to solve this, I promise. The reason it looks so complicated is because it's what's called a differential equation. And all that really means is that it's designed to model 2 crucial things: the rate of change of each factor over time and how all those factors influence each other. So the real power here isn't in the math. It's that we finally have a model built for the messy, flowing, interconnected reality of a human life. And this is where it gets really, really cool. Because when you start applying this mathematical lens to those 8 factors, some truly powerful and even surprising insights start to pop out. The model shows that not all of these factors are created equal. Just look at this graph. It shows such a profound difference. The green line, that's money. The happiness you get from it has diminishing returns. After a certain point, it just starts to level off. But now, look at that blue line, for knowledge. The model suggests that the happiness you get from learning can actually be exponential. It builds on itself. It really doesn't have a ceiling. It's a truly sustainable engine for your well-being. And this graph shows another key insight. A great vacation gives you that huge, immediate spike in happiness. You can see it right there. But then look what happens. That feeling naturally decays over time as the memory starts to fade. So what does the model tell us? It tells us that to maintain happiness from this factor, you have to keep introducing new experiences to counteract that natural decline. So look, this model is absolutely fascinating. But let's be real, a complex equation isn't something you can just whip out to decide what to have for dinner. So how do we turn this amazing theory into a practical tool for making better decisions? Well, it all builds into a totally usable framework. We can boil this entire theory down to a really simple three-step process. First, you assess, just to be honest, and take stock of where you are right now, across all 8 factors. Second, identify. Where is the change happening? Where do you have positive momentum and where do you have negative momentum? And third, you focus. Based on that, you can consciously decide where to put your time and energy to get the biggest, most sustainable boost. Let's use a huge decision, like changing jobs. Let's say the new job offers more money, but it means moving away from your friends and family. How in the world do you decide? Well, by using this framework, you can systematically think about the rate of change for each factor. Okay, money goes up, but relationships go down. But what about knowledge, or your hobbies, or your fitness? By looking at the entire system, not just 1 or 2 variables, you can make a so much more informed decision. And this brings us to what I think is the most powerful part of this whole thing. This is not a one-size-fits-all formula. It's a blueprint, and it's designed to be customized entirely by you. Inside that big equation, there are these variables that basically act like personal volume knobs for each of the 8 factors. For one person, the knob for relationships might be turned all the way up. For someone else, projects is what really matters. The model only works when it's tuned to your unique personal values. So the real takeaway here is that this whole process, it isn't about finally arriving at some happy island and you're just done. Happiness is an active process of management. You're the engineer of a ship, constantly making small adjustments to your 8 engines to keep your trajectory headed in a positive, upward direction. It's all about conscious, systematic steering. And that right there is the ultimate paradigm shift. You become the active engineer of your own life with a model and with variables you can actually influence. Now, if this idea resonates with you and you want to dive way deeper into the complete blueprint, all the underlying principles are laid out in Dr. Gebert's book, The Equation of Happiness, which you can find on Amazon. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Looking at those 8 factors, money, appearance, knowledge, credit, relationships, experiences, fitness, and projects. If you could focus your energy on creating a positive rate of change in just one of them, starting today, which one would give you the most lift?